In the year 2000, Tupac Shakur wrote a poem entitled "A Rose That Grows in the Concrete." Now, the origin of this poem derives from an experience that Tupac had in his hometown of Oakland, California. What seems, according to Tupac, that Oakland is not a place where beautiful flowers flourish. For Tupac grew up in a concrete urban setting where flowers did not bloom, nor did plants progress. For Oakland, like many urban settings in America, was and is filled with immense poverty and overwhelming negativity. For Oakland is a breeding ground for lost hopes and dead dreams. Yet one day, Tupac was in the hood. He was in the hood, y'all. Tupac was in the hood, walking on concrete, striding on asphalt, when he saw a sight that he had never seen before. For Tupac looked down and saw a rose in the midst of a crack in the concrete. Tupac saw a sight that he had never seen before. Tupac saw a rose sprouting buds in the middle of asphalt. Tupac saw beauty coming out of an ugly situation. And when Tupac saw that rose in a place that it was not supposed to be, it offered him a glimmer of hope in a hopeless situation. For Tupac's poetic genius went to work. And out of that work, Tupac asked, "Did you hear about the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete, proving nature's law is wrong? It learned to walk without having feet. Funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. Long live the rose that grew from concrete when no one else ever cared." And when I heard those poetic words, it made me think about the writer of our text. When I heard and read Tupac's "A Rose That Grew from Concrete," I thought about the first century globe-trotting Apostle Paul. Thought about Paul, who coined the words that serves as our Father's Day text. For Paul, like Tupac, writes these words in a similar setting. Paul, when he writes these words, is not on vacation. Not on vacation. He's not kicking it on the beach. He's not on an academic sabbatical. He's not just reading and writing. Paul, ladies and gentlemen, is writing from a prison jail cell in Rome. Paul is in irons. I need you to visualize that. Paul is in irons. Paul is in shackles. Paul is in a hopeless situation. Paul is in concrete asphalt. For Paul can really identify with Michelle Alexander's best-selling book, The New Jim Crow, because Paul is fatal to prison pipeline that has been put in place to incarcerate black men and black women at an alarming rate. I'm talking about unjust sentencing guidelines, laws on the books from the 1800s being used to send our sons and daughters away for a long time. Michelle Alexander reports that there are more African Americans in prison or jail, on probation, on parole, than were enslaved in 1850. That says something, y'all. Michelle Alexander believes that the African American communities are not merely a passive collateral side effect of poverty or limited educational opportunities or other factors, but a consequence of purposeful governmental policies. Alexander has concluded that mass incarceration policies, which were swiftly developed and implemented, are a comprehensive, well-designed, disguised system of racialized control that functions in a manner similar to Jim Crow. And here is Paul. Here is Paul, y'all. Can you see him? Here is Paul. Paul is in prison. He's on a felony charge. Can't work when he gets out of jail. He's on a felony charge, y'all. Can't vote because he has a felony. Can't get into public housing because he has a criminal conviction on his record. Paul identifies with the plight of many of our sons and daughters today. Paul knows what it is like to be locked up on Father's Day. Lord have mercy. Paul knows what it is like to talk to a child through glass. Lord, have mercy. Paul knows what it is like to write prison letters to his loved ones. For Paul's life is in concrete. Paul's life, y'all, is in concrete. He's got concrete all the way around him. Paul's life is in concrete. But watch this. Paul, instead of giving up and throwing in the towel, Paul, instead of accepting what the world was saying about him, Paul doesn't succumb to the concrete that is around him. Paul looks to the God that is within him. Oh, I wish I had a witness right there. I'm talking too fast this morning. Paul doesn't succumb to the concrete that is around him. Paul looks to the God that is within him. Paul doesn't give up because of where he is. Paul is able to look up because of whose he is. Paul doesn't allow where he is to poison who he is. Who am I talking to this morning? Paul understands that no matter where he is, he can still serve the God that is. Oh my goodness, Paul, y'all, Paul doesn't let where he is stop him from growing and defining himself. For Paul writes a book, y'all. He writes several books. He develops worldwide Christian theology. Paul reinvents himself. For Paul writes a letter, y'all. He writes a letter to Christian believers in Ephesus. Paul writes 6 chapters. The first 3 chapters are doctrinal. It deals with education. The last 3 chapters are practical application. But in the middle of education and application, Paul, he takes a praise break, y'all. He takes time out to give God some praise. I wish I had some praisers in the house today that in the middle of application and education, you can raise your hands and say, God, I thank you for being God all by yourself. For Paul says, now unto him that is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we may ask or think, according to the power that is working within us. Now that's a statement from a rose out of concrete. That's a statement from a rose that's growing out of concrete. Paul is a rose that is not blossoming in a garden, but Paul is blossoming in concrete. Paul, y'all, he's blossoming in prison. For I don't know about y'all, but I'm feeling Paul this morning. For Paul, y'all, he's blossoming where it is impossible to blossom. What we learn from Tupac and Paul is that what God put in me is greater than the concrete that is around me. What God has placed inside of me, it's greater than all of the haters that are around me. I wish I had a church this morning. Paul understands that God has not given up on him. God is still at work within him. For the God above can help me deal with the concrete around me. For Paul says, now unto him, now unto him, now unto him. I need you to get that in your spirit this morning. Now unto him, now unto him. You're about to miss your shout. Now unto him, now unto him. Who you talking about? Now unto him. You shout if you know who him is. Now unto him, now unto him. Who is him? Can I ask that question this morning? Who is him? Now unto him, now unto him. I kind of feel my help this morning. Now unto him, now unto him. Who is him? Well, who is him? Who is him? Who is him? What do we know about him? Well, liberation theologian James Cone calls him the God of the oppressed. Who is him? Who is him? Who is him? Who is him? Old Testament scholar Walter Brueggemann calls him the God who parted the Red Sea. Who is him? Who is him? Who is him? New Testament scholar Dr. Stephanie Crowder calls him the God of the conscripted. The God that can help you carry your heavy load. The God of the conscripted. Who is him? Who is him? Martin Luther called him the God of all grace. Who is him? Now unto him. Who is him? Let me go Bible on y'all this morning. Who is him? Him is the God. Him is the God that told Moses to go tell Pharaoh, let my people go. Who is him? Him. Who is him? He's the God that got in the fiery furnace. Who is him? Who is him? Who is him? He's the God that got in the lion's den and shut the mouths of the hungry lions. Who is him? Who is him? He's the God that went to a graveyard and told Lazarus to get up and come forth. Him. Who is him? Who is him? Who is him? Let me go old school on you. Him is a rock in a weary land. Him is shelter in the time of storm. Him is a heart fixer, a mind regulator. Him is the God of my weary years, the God of my silent tears. Who is him? Him. Who is him? Let me go at you. Him put food on your table. Him. Who is him? Him got you through school. Him put you on your job. Him kept you when you didn't have a job. Who is him this morning? Him is able. Oh, I wish I had a church right about there. I said him is able. Does anybody know him to be an able God? Now unto him that is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we may ask or think. Oh, there it is. Now unto him that is able to do. Him to do. Now unto him that is able to do. Now unto him that is able to do. The Greek word for to do is the same word used in Genesis when God created the world. To do. God can do. When God created the world, God to do means to create. God created something out of nothing. God created. When you're down to nothing, how many of you know God will create something? To do. Oh, I need a church right about there. God takes nothing and he makes something out of it. Oh my God. God, the God above you is creating stuff around you. God is creating beautiful roses out of concrete. For there is a God that can do. I said there's a God that can do. He can do it. He can do it. Y'all don't believe me this morning. I said there's a God that can do it. He can do it. He can do it. To create, to do. It literally means to weave something together. Means to weave something together. What's a weave? Well, a weave is when you go to the beauty shop. And you get hooked up with more than you had before. Oh my God, y'all ain't feeling me this morning. A weave. To create, to do. A weave. Beyonce had or has a weave. Beyonce, my girl Beyonce, she's got a weave. Now I couldn't tell that Beyonce had some extra hair. And they tell me the reason I couldn't tell is because Beyonce went to the right one. They tell me if you go to the wrong one, you can tell it's a bad weave. But Baby be on stage singing and throwing that hair around. She be working that weave. Well, I serve a God who will work some stuff out for some people in his house. I serve a God that can do and will do. Why? Because he's able to do. Who am I talking to? We serve a God that can do anything. Oh, I'm looking at some people that know that God can do. That God can pay light bills. That God can keep you in your house. That God can put food on your table. That God can make a way out of no way.